What if I told you that one night Elvis Presley took the stage and something happened that no one saw coming? Imagine the king of rock and roll in his prime, captivating thousands of fans with his signature moves and unforgettable voice. The crowd was buzzing, fully expecting another legendary performance from the man who could ignite a room with a single note. But on this particular night, something unexpected unfolded. Something that would send the audience into a frenzy, leaving fans speechless and the press scrambling for answers. Elvis was no stranger to memorable moments on stage, but this was different. This was a moment that would become the talk of the town, etched into the history of his performances forever. Stay with us, because what happened next is something you won't believe. Stay tuned as we unravel the unbelievable story behind this wild moment in Elvis Presley's history. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more incredible stories about the king of rock and roll, setting the stage. It was a night in the late 1960s, a time when Elvis Presley was riding the highest waves of his career. The venue was packed to the rafters, filled with fans who had traveled from all corners, eager to witness the magic that only Elvis could deliver. This wasn't just any concert. It was one of his most iconic shows, where the energy in the room was almost tangible. The stage lights were bright, the air thick with anticipation, and the king was about to give a performance no one would ever forget, but not for the reasons anyone expected. As the show kicked off, Elvis strolled onto the stage with that unmistakable swagger, every step drawing cheers and screams from the audience. The crowd had come to see the Elvis they knew and loved, the man who could make hearts race with a single smile, who transformed every song into an electrifying experience. His charisma was unmatched, his presence magnetic, and with each note, the crowd was completely under his spell. Elvis had that rare ability to make each person in the room feel like he was singing just for them, and that night was no different, or so it seemed. But something was different. There was a certain tension in the air, an underlying sense that something was building. The fans couldn't quite put their finger on it, but as the night unfolded, they would soon realize this was no ordinary performance. The energy in the room, which started with the usual excitement and joy, slowly began to shift. People sensed something was coming, something they couldn't have prepared for. What happened next would shock everyone in the audience, leaving them with a story to tell for years to come. And just when you think you know where this is going, the real twist is yet to be revealed. Stay with us, because the most unexpected moment is still ahead. The performance. The show began like any other legendary Elvis performance, pure magic from the very first moment. The king hit the stage with his signature swagger, oozing charm, and delivering those famous moves that sent the audience into a frenzy. His voice was as powerful as ever, each note striking like lightning and filling the packed venue with that unmistakable energy only Elvis could create. He flashed that iconic smile, winked at the crowd, and with just a flick of his wrist, he had every person in the room under his spell. The crowd was completely absorbed, hanging on his every move, knowing they were witnessing a master at work. As Elvis moved through his set, everything seemed perfect. He belted out hit after hit, the audience clapping, cheering, and swaying to the music. It was everything fans had come to expect from the king, an electric, high-energy performance that felt like it could go on forever. He interacted with the crowd in his usual playful way, tossing scarves and blowing kisses, making each person feel like they were part of something special. Everything was smooth, seamless, as if the night would be yet another in a long line of unforgettable performances. But unbeknownst to the crowd, something was simmering beneath the surface. Suddenly, there was a shift, almost imperceptible at first, but it was there. The seamless flow of the show started to feel a little off, like a tension creeping into the room. Maybe it was something in Elvis's expression or a slight change in his movements. The crowd, though still mesmerized, began to pick up on it, feeling that something wasn't quite right. They didn't know what it was yet, but they could sense it in the air. This perfect show was about to take a turn, and when it did, it would be a moment no one would ever forget. What was about to happen would turn an ordinary night into something truly extraordinary, and believe me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The tension builds. As the night went on, the atmosphere began to change, almost imperceptibly at first. Elvis continued to perform, but there was something different in the way he moved. His usual energy was still there, but a strange tension started creeping into the air. The crowd was still cheering, still caught up in the excitement, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was just a little off. It was subtle, a glance here, a pause there, moments that made you wonder if Elvis was truly himself. But the king was a master showman, and for a while, he kept the audience locked in his spell, masking whatever was happening behind the scenes. As the performance rolled on, the unease grew. Elvis's charm was still magnetic, but every now and then a flicker of something unfamiliar passed across his face. Was it exhaustion? A moment of distraction? The fans weren't sure, but they could feel the shift, and they held their breath, waiting for whatever was coming next. The band played on, the lights stayed bright, but the tension in the room thickened. The crowd remained enthralled, but now with an edge of uncertainty, as if they were bracing for something to happen. What it was, they couldn't yet pinpoint, but the anticipation was building. And then it happened. A single, unexpected moment that shifted the entire night. The crowd gasped, unsure of what they had just witnessed, unsure of what would come next. Elvis was still on stage, but the show had taken a turn no one had foreseen. The audience was left on the edge of their seats, their excitement mixed with confusion, and their cheers slowly turned into murmurs. Something had changed, and now all eyes were on Elvis, waiting to see what he would do next. The tension had reached its peak, and the night was far from over. You'll never believe what happened next. The tension builds. As the night went on, the atmosphere began to change, almost imperceptibly at first. Elvis continued to perform, but there was something different in the way he moved. His usual energy was still there, but a strange tension started creeping into the air. The crowd was still cheering, still caught up in the excitement, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was just a little off. It was subtle, a glance here, a pause there, moments that made you wonder if Elvis was truly himself. But the king was a master showman, and for a while he kept the audience locked in his spell, masking whatever was happening behind the scenes. As the performance rolled on, the unease grew. Elvis's charm was still magnetic, but every now and then a flicker of something unfamiliar passed across his face. Was it exhaustion? A moment of distraction? The fans weren't sure, but they could feel the shift, and they held their breath, waiting for whatever was coming next. The band played on, the lights stayed bright, but the tension in the room thickened. The crowd remained enthralled, but now with an edge of uncertainty, as if they were bracing for something to happen. What it was, they couldn't yet pinpoint, but the anticipation was building. And then it happened. A single, unexpected moment that shifted the entire night. The crowd gasped, unsure of what they had just witnessed, unsure of what would come next. Elvis was still on stage, but the show had taken a turn no one had foreseen. The audience was left on the edge of their seats, their excitement mixed with confusion, and their cheers slowly turned into murmurs. Something had changed, and now all eyes were on Elvis, waiting to see what he would do next. The tension had reached its peak, and the night was far from over. You'll never believe what happened next. What really happened? What happened next was nothing short of legendary. As the tension in the room reached its peak, Elvis leaned into one of his final songs, the crowd still buzzing with anticipation. And then, out of nowhere, it happened. A fan, driven by sheer excitement and the magic of the moment, broke through security and rushed the stage. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted from suspenseful to chaotic. But instead of panic or fear, what Elvis did next left everyone in awe. He didn't flinch. In fact, he welcomed the fan with open arms, flashing that unmistakable Elvis smile and turning a potential disruption into an unforgettable moment. The crowd went wild, their cheers roaring through the venue louder than ever before. The unexpected nature of the incident and Elvis's calm, charismatic response had everyone on their feet. Fans couldn't believe what they were witnessing. It wasn't just the fact that someone had made it onto the stage. It was the way Elvis handled it, as if it had all been part of the show. His ability to connect with people, even in the most unpredictable situations, was on full display. For a brief moment, it felt like the barrier between the superstar and his fans disappeared completely. That night, Elvis wasn't just a performer. He was one of them, and the crowd couldn't get enough. The energy in the room surged, and what could have been a disaster became the highlight of the evening. As the fan was escorted off stage, Elvis continued the show without missing a beat. But the crowd was still electrified, caught up in the frenzy of what they had just witnessed. The cheers were deafening, the excitement palpable, and fans knew they had just experienced something truly unique. This wasn't just another Elvis concert. It was a moment in history, a night that would be talked about for years to come. The king had once again proven why he was the greatest showman of all time, turning the unexpected into something iconic. And just when they thought the night couldn't get any more extraordinary, there was still one more surprise in store: the aftermath. The crowd couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The energy was still pulsing through the venue, long after the show had ended. Fans were buzzing with excitement, retelling the moment over and over again, each time with more enthusiasm than before. The way Elvis had turned an unpredictable situation into a magical experience only solidified his legendary status. His cool, calm response had left everyone in awe, and the entire night became the kind of performance that people would talk about for decades. For those lucky enough to be there, it wasn't just a concert. It was history in the making. Elvis had once again proven why he was more than just an entertainer. He was a master at creating unforgettable moments. In the days and weeks that followed, the buzz around the performance didn't die down. In fact, it only grew. Fans across the country couldn't stop talking about it, and soon, rumors began to spread. Some said the fan who rushed the stage was an old friend of Elvis's. Others speculated it had all been planned, a clever stunt to create even more hype around his shows. But those who were there knew the truth. It was pure, unscripted magic, the kind of thing that only Elvis could pull off. The media jumped on the story, covering it in newspapers and magazines, with some even calling it one of the most iconic moments of his career. Everyone wanted to know how Elvis had stayed so cool under pressure, and it only added to his mystique. As for Elvis himself, he took it all in stride, like he always did. Those close to him said he was amused by how big the moment had become, but for him, it was just another night doing what he loved, entertaining his fans. He wasn't one to let these things get to him, but even he couldn't deny that this particular night was something special. It became part of the Elvis lore, a moment that would forever be associated with his ability to make the unexpected unforgettable. For the fans, it was a night they'd never forget. And for Elvis, it was just another reminder of why the world would never stop loving him. What do you think of Elvis's quick reaction? Have you ever seen an artist handle an onstage mishap with such charm and humor? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your favorite Elvis moments or any other unforgettable live performance memories that you've experienced. Let's celebrate the magic of live music together.